What if I tell you that the next few days could change the entire Middle East and possibly shake the global economy in ways we have never seen before? Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah ir-Rahman ir-Rahim. Welcome to Global USA News. I am Kundi, and today we're discussing a very serious and sensitive situation that is developing rapidly. International experts and regional analysts have issued strong warnings advising people in certain Middle Eastern countries to stay alert and, if possible, reconsider non-essential travel plans. According to multiple reports, tensions in the region have reached a dangerous level. The fear is not just about a limited conflict, but about a broader confrontation that could affect oil supplies, financial markets, and global stability. The situation being described is alarming. There are growing concerns that if military action begins, it may not remain limited. Some analysts believe that the Strait of Hormuz, a very critical waterway for global oil transport, could become a central flashpoint. A significant percentage of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow route every single day. If this route is disrupted for even a short time, it could create serious supply chain issues worldwide. That means possible fuel shortages, rising petrol prices, and pressure on economies that depend heavily on imported energy. Satellite images circulating in international media reportedly show increased defensive preparations in key areas. Reports suggest that certain strategic sites have been reinforced and secured more heavily than before. Military analysts are pointing toward increased activity in the region, including naval movements and aerial deployments. While exact numbers are difficult to confirm, it is clear that military readiness levels are higher than usual. Fighter jets, refueling aircraft, and naval assets are reportedly being positioned in surrounding areas. This level of preparation indicates that decision-makers are taking the situation extremely seriously. Now let us talk about the economic side. Many people are already filling their vehicle tanks and preparing for possible disruptions. The fear is that if conflict starts and oil transport is blocked or limited, the supply of crude oil could drop sharply. Experts estimate that even a temporary disruption in the Strait of Hormuz could impact up to 20 to 30% of global oil shipments. When supply goes down and demand remains the same, prices usually rise. Some analysts are predicting that oil prices could spike dramatically in the short term. In extreme scenarios, energy markets could experience double or even triple price movements compared to recent averages. Countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Iraq, and Iran export large volumes of oil through this region. If shipments are delayed or stopped, global markets will react immediately. Import-dependent countries could face fuel shortages, transportation costs could increase, and inflation could rise. For developing economies, this could be particularly painful. At the same time, there are reports that major global powers are closely monitoring the situation. Statements coming from officials in Russia have warned that any direct, large-scale attack could escalate beyond control. The message from some diplomats has been clear. Once a regional conflict begins, it is very difficult to contain. Military actions can trigger counter-responses, and those responses can expand quickly across borders. This is why many international observers are urging caution and diplomatic engagement instead of confrontation. In financial markets, uncertainty is already visible. Traditionally, during times of war or geopolitical crisis, investors move their money towards safe assets. The US dollar sometimes strengthens because investors seek liquidity. However, in recent years, gold has also become a major safe haven asset. Analysts are closely watching the behavior of China, which has been increasing its gold reserves over time. If a conflict begins, gold prices could spike sharply as investors rush to protect their wealth. Silver markets have also shown volatility in recent weeks, moving up and down based on global tension and speculation. Another important factor is the position of the United States. Military buildup reports indicate readiness, but political decisions are always complex. Within policy circles, there are often divided opinions. Some advisors usually recommend restraint to avoid a long and costly conflict, while others argue for a strong show of force. It is important to understand that any major decision will carry serious consequences, not only for the region, but also for global security and economic stability. There are also unconfirmed reports that wealthy individuals and multinational investors are diversifying their locations and assets. In times of uncertainty, capital often moves towards regions perceived as stable. European destinations sometimes become temporary safe hubs during global crises. However, markets can change quickly, and what appears stable today can shift tomorrow. If a full-scale conflict were to erupt, the impact would not be limited to oil alone. Stock markets in the Gulf region could experience heavy selling pressure. Real estate sectors might slow down sharply. Insurance costs for shipping through sensitive waterways could skyrocket. Airlines might reroute flights, increasing travel time and expenses. Supply chains that rely on timely deliveries could face delays, affecting industries from manufacturing to retail. There is also the humanitarian aspect. War brings suffering to ordinary civilians first. Displacement, economic hardship, and uncertainty affect families the most. That is why global institutions consistently emphasize dialogue over destruction. Once military escalation begins, controlling its direction becomes extremely difficult. Some observers are even comparing the current buildup to previous major conflicts in the region. However, every era has its own unique political and technological realities. Modern warfare involves cyber operations, drones, precision missiles, and advanced surveillance systems. This makes conflicts faster and potentially more unpredictable than in the past. Energy experts are calculating different scenarios. In a short conflict lasting a few days, markets may spike and then stabilize. In a prolonged confrontation, however, the global economy could face long-term structural pressure. Oil-importing nations might be forced to tap into strategic reserves. Governments could introduce fuel rationing measures if shortages become severe. Transportation and logistics sectors would feel immediate strain. One more important dimension is alliances. Regional countries hosting foreign military bases could face difficult diplomatic choices. Balancing national interests while avoiding direct involvement is never easy. Every decision could influence regional power equations for years to come. At this moment, the world is watching carefully. Diplomatic channels are reportedly active behind the scenes. Back-channel negotiations often take place quietly during such tense periods. Sometimes strong public statements are followed by quiet compromise. The next few days may reveal whether leaders choose confrontation or negotiation. For ordinary people, the best approach is awareness without panic. Avoid spreading unverified rumors. Rely on credible sources. Prepare sensibly, but do not make decisions based on fear alone. Markets and political situations can change quickly, and unexpected diplomatic breakthroughs are always possible. The coming days are critical. If tensions cool down, markets may stabilize and oil prices could return to normal levels. If escalation continues, we could witness one of the most significant geopolitical shifts in recent years. Everything depends on strategic decisions taken at the highest levels. This is Kundi on Global USA News. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe diplomacy will prevail, or are we heading for a major confrontation? Stay informed, stay calm, and stay connected for further updates.
As we continue this discussion, it is important to look deeper into what could happen if the situation escalates further. Military analysts believe that if open confrontation begins, the first targets in any major operation would likely be strategic military facilities, communication systems, and naval assets positioned in sensitive waters. Modern warfare is no longer limited to traditional ground battles. It involves cyber attacks, electronic warfare, drones, precision-guided missiles, and space-based surveillance systems. That means any conflict could expand very quickly beyond its original starting point. Another serious concern is naval security. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most sensitive maritime choke points in the world. If commercial shipping routes are disrupted, even temporarily, global oil markets will react within minutes. Insurance premiums for oil tankers could rise sharply. Shipping companies might delay voyages. Importing nations would be forced to use emergency reserves. This would not just affect petrol prices at fuel stations, but also food transportation, manufacturing costs, airline operations, and public transportation systems. Financial markets are extremely sensitive to uncertainty. In times of geopolitical crisis, investors typically look for safety. Historically, gold prices tend to rise when fear increases. Some financial experts believe that central banks, especially in Asia, may increase gold purchases as a protective measure. If this happens, precious metal markets could experience another rally. On the other hand, stock markets in volatile regions may see heavy selling pressure. Investors often move funds out of risky markets and into what they consider stable economies. Energy analysts are also discussing worst-case scenarios. If oil exports from major producers are significantly reduced, the global supply-demand balance could shift dramatically. Countries that rely heavily on imported energy might face inflation spikes. Transportation costs would increase. Electricity production costs could rise in nations that use oil-based power generation. This could create economic stress not only in the Middle East, but also in Asia, Europe, and parts of Africa. At the political level, decision makers are under immense pressure. Military action is never taken lightly because leaders understand that once it begins, controlling its scale becomes extremely difficult. Strategic miscalculations can lead to unintended escalation. A limited strike can trigger a wider response. Regional allies may get involved. Diplomatic relations can shift overnight. There are also concerns about cyber warfare. Modern conflicts often begin in the digital domain. Financial institutions, communication networks, and energy infrastructure can become targets of cyber attacks. Even without physical missiles being launched, cyber operations can cause disruption and panic. Governments around the world are strengthening their cyber defenses in anticipation of possible instability. Another issue that cannot be ignored is public reaction. In times of crisis, people may rush to stock up on essential goods. This behavior alone can create temporary shortages. Markets react not only to actual supply problems, but also to fear. If consumers expect fuel shortages, demand rises immediately, pushing prices up even before real disruptions occur. Managing public communication becomes critical to prevent panic. Diplomatic efforts are reportedly ongoing behind closed doors. High-level discussions often take place quietly while public statements remain strong and firm. Sometimes strong rhetoric is used for negotiation leverage rather than immediate action. It is possible that intense diplomacy could reduce tensions before any major confrontation begins. History shows that last-minute negotiations have prevented conflicts in the past. However, the uncertainty remains. Military deployments, naval positioning, and air force readiness indicate that preparations are real. When multiple countries increase their alert levels at the same time, it sends a clear signal that the situation is serious. At the same time, global powers are aware that a prolonged war would damage the global economy, including their own national interests. For countries in South Asia and other developing regions, rising oil prices would be particularly challenging. Many of these economies already face inflation pressures. A sudden spike in energy costs would increase the burden on governments and citizens alike. Subsidies may increase fiscal deficits. Currency exchange rates could come under pressure. It is also important to mention that in the modern interconnected world, regional conflicts rarely remain regional. Supply chains stretch across continents. Financial systems are linked globally. A shock in one region quickly transmits to others. This is why global markets are watching every statement, every military movement, and every diplomatic meeting very closely. Despite all these concerns, there is still space for de-escalation. International organizations and neutral countries often step in to mediate during high-risk situations. Back-channel communication can help prevent misunderstandings. Even when tensions appear extremely high, diplomatic solutions are sometimes achieved at the final moment. The coming days will likely determine the direction of events. If calm prevails, markets may stabilize and fears could ease. If escalation occurs, the impact could be swift and far-reaching. The key message for viewers is to stay informed, avoid spreading unverified rumors, and follow credible news sources. This situation reminds us how fragile global stability can be. Energy security, financial markets, and regional peace are deeply interconnected. Any major disruption affects everyone, not just one country. Leaders now face critical choices that will shape the immediate future. This is Kundi reporting for Global USA News. Share your opinion in the comments section. Do you think diplomacy will succeed, or are we entering a period of prolonged tension? Stay connected for timely updates, and as always, stay aware and stay responsible.